Jessica Alstrom, spiritual teacher, medical intuitive, and quantum integration specialist, answers your spiritual questions and assists you through understanding your personal process while providing tools and techniques to move swiftly through the journey back to light.
Hello and welcome to the Transcendence Podcast. This is your host, Jessica Alstrom, and today I am going to do a podcast on what I call is taking your power back. And, for a really long time, we have tried to, in our lives, assert our power through different survival mechanisms, basically of how we learned how to be empowered the first 7 years. And although that shows up very distorted most of the time, when we start to awaken and we start to realize is that we can't be fed by other people, we can't find self-love through other people or things, and it's time to be with ourselves and heal ourselves and empower ourselves. It's very funny because we have this other voice or these other voices playing in the front of our mind. When you've not been conscious that there is a higher, more knowing, loving perspective of you, then ego has been basically riding as the pilot for a lot of your lifetime. And an ego driver looks like a driver that is complaining and is victimized and perpetrating and in judgment and feels judgment and, is replaying the tapes of shame and guilt and is afraid of things and its environment and, worrying about catching, the latest disease and running and getting the vaccination and doing all those things. And that's a very third dimensional game. And, ego is your third dimensional component. And it is the part of you that you were born into to be able to navigate through a third dimensional planet. Now, the game has changed, and the planet is actually moved from its, evolutionary state from 3 to 4 to 5D. And 5D is more about, it's more about potential, okay? And it's more about creation itself, and the 4D is the fourth dimension is where the creation happens, and 3D is where form lives. And so when you live your life in form and circumstances and you buy in with your logic that life is the way you see it, and people who tell you things are authority, and people have authority over you, then your life becomes very split. And if you were an empath or a volunteer or a light worker who came down, then you came down, whenever I call you an indigo or I call you a rainbow or I call you a light worker, basically what I'm just saying is that you have a fourth dimensional frequency. Your soul that's embodied the body is an evolved soul that is not third dimensionally constructed. It's a fourth, fifth dimensional energy, which means that you're going to have more of a personality of a neutral being. You're going to have less judgment. You're going to see more gray areas instead of so much black and white. You're going to feel what people are feeling before they even know that they're feeling. You're going to be able to have that knowing or that gut feeling more apparently than someone who is not awakened at all. And most of the time the 4D personalities, they come in and they get stuck in 3D, and I will tell you that's where all the problems are, because 3D is form. 3D is solids. 3D is, this is how it is, if that sounds like your dad, it is the way it is, and, you don't question reality, and you need to get in reality, and you need to get off of those clouds, and you need to be a good girl, and you need to not be seen and heard, and good kids are not seen and heard. They're, all of these tapes that are running at a cellular level in your body. And one of the things that I noticed a lot of us get as children is that we are not allowed to debate, at least this generation, my generation. I'll be 41 this year, so my generation was, and all the generations before me, your opinion was not open for debate. as a kid. Your voice or your feelings were really not an issue so much. And if they were, God love you. You're probably ahead on your journey. But if they weren't, then what you've got at a cellular level is a recording that says, don't talk back. And I was just talking to one of my clients this morning about this because, she was raised in a military household. And so it was very yes, sir, no, sir. And there was nothing that was up for debate as far as right and wrong. And when you live your whole life like that, and yet you are a fourth dimensional being or an empath, there's a lot of inner conflict that's going on because that inner voice of yours is never going to go away, even though you're not allowed to debate the voices that are in the front of your mind saying, this is how it is. And you need to focus on being responsible, and you need to do the right thing. And I will tell you, third dimension is black and white. It's right or wrong. It's circumstances. It's the past repeating itself. Look at our history books. It is nothing ever changes. People can't change. You can't change the past. It is what it is. You got to deal with the cards you're dealt. It is, my mom had cancer, so I have cancer. It's basically like one third solid dimensional game constantly in repetition. And there's no change. You can't build in 3D. You can just recreate, regenerate. So the tapes that are playing at a third dimension or a ego perspective of your consciousness are always running 3D information. And your soul or your higher self or your heart's frequency is running at a fourth, fifth dimensional frequency. And so there is a huge contradiction going on between who you are and what's right or wrong. Because a fourth dimensional frequency lives in the gray. It does not judge. There is no right or wrong. There is no gender. There is no, there is no, color of the skin. There is no religion. There is no, there isn't even a preference of what we would call God. It's more of like oneness and unity. And it is the building block of where the timeline can be turned malleable and recreated and regenerated. And so as a fourth dimensional perspective comes down and gets slapped into a 3D body, there's already conflict going on, within the self, even before mom and dad get their hands on you. And so what I want to do is I want to teach you guys how to really empower yourself and learn to talk back. That sounds kind of crazy. But one of the things that I noticed about people is they won't take their power back. And I want you to look at all your life right now and find all of your one-sided relationships. Your one-sided relationships look like, you see the situation much clearer than the other person, and you're going out of your way to help that person and be there for that person and give that person what they need and want, and no matter what happens, you're available, and you're always giving more than you receive, and at the end of the day, if there's something that you need help with, it's really not available. And it's really more about them than it is about you. And there's something within you that keeps searching for that giving to start happening on the other end. And the more you give and the more you give and the more you give, the more they take. Because there are people who love serving, and there are people who love being served. And empaths usually find themselves in those relationships. We could call it the empath and the narcissist. And I will say that your soul is the empath and your ego is the narcissist. And you are having that dual relationship with yourself. So I am going to start teaching you how to take your power back with your own ego. And then you'll learn you can take your power back in those one-sided relationships. And so here's how I have become my own best friend. And this is how I have become my own guru and my own teacher, because I don't have a spiritual teacher besides I would call my kids, or my reality that I use as my spiritual teacher. But I have taught myself that there is no one out there who's going to love me or help me the way that I need to be helped and loved. So if I am going to do this and I'm going to rescue myself and I'm going to fall in love with myself, then I've got to be able to talk back to the things that are playing at a subconscious place that are not true. And one of the tapes that we all have playing is don't talk back. So we find ourselves letting our ego go out of control and start playing the tapes of society and religion and mom and dad and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and past relationships that have abused the hell out of you. And all of a sudden those tapes are playing and you've moved out of 4D into 3D and you are lost. And never once did you even go and try to debate the tapes. And you actually believe it's all true because you know what? You're thinking it must be true. None of it is true. It's a recording. It's all just being generated through the energetic triggers of sensation that happens when like attracts like. And the tone of someone's voice can take you back to that PTSD moment of a child where, you were talked down to. And like I said, this is where a lot of our 7-year-old cycle is where all of our tapes usually are. And they're playing at a subconscious or unconscious level. And then it just takes that one real abusive relationship that we find ourselves when we're 30 to really just knock us down. And so one of the things that I do is I debate myself every day. And here's how it works. And you have to be conscious for this. You have to be in the present moment, because if you start going into your ego and you start channeling all the tapes that are playing in the background and you're unconscious, you're not even going to be noticing that you have any power here. So you've got to be present and you've got to be there when your ego starts going. And when the ego starts to channel the tapes of the past, channel mom and dad or wherever, then you've got to be there. The empath has to be there as the narcissist is going off on one. And you've got to go, whoa, 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 buddy, stop. This is right, this is right, this is what's right. These are solutions. This is where we have won instead of failed. This is where we've been there to help people. This is all of our time and effort that we have spent working on ourselves. This is our strong points. This is our magic. Look at all the things we've manifested. Look how things always work out for us. And the ego stops the tapes and listens. And it may say, well, yeah, but you're going to fail. And then you know what? You're right there to go, yeah, but what if we don't fail? And now all of a sudden, which probably could look pretty psychotic from the outside looking in, what's happening is the war that you're afraid of outside of you, you recognize that all there ever was a war within. And you start to have this conversation with yourself. And in real time, you start to point out the positive aspects about yourself, why ego's playing your negative tapes. And you're moving into your heart space and you're starting to take your power back from yourself. And what happens is higher self now gets out of the co-pilot seat and puts herself back into the pilot seat and says, this is where we're going. And yeah, the ego is going to backseat drive and the ego is going to complain about your driving and it's going to say you're Pollyanna and you're too positive and you're annoying. But you know what? The ego's not driving anymore, which means that the tapes are just like a dull, annoying gnat playing in the background and not something real that has any power. But if you're not there to debate yourself and notice when your tapes are playing and be like, why do I keep thinking that? What's really going on? And be like, hey, buddy, this is not okay. We're not going down into negative Nelly land anymore. We are going to stay in solutions. And ego lives in drama and solutions. And higher self, the empath of the soul, lives in solutions. Because this is a paradoxical universe, and when you create the problem, you also create the solution. But depending on where you're quantumly focused, you cannot see the solution if you're focused on the problem. And ego will take you down into a negative spiral so fast that no matter how much spiritual work you've done on yourself, you could be in a hole in 15 minutes if you let the tapes just go out of control. So what I do to take my power back is I don't work on my relationships first. I don't try to take my power back from my husband or my mom. That's like not even focusing on the real root cause of the suffering, which is basically I've bought into these tapes being real in the first place. That's why I've attracted the relationships in the first place. So instead of talking back to my husband or talking back to somebody else who's now triggered me in my real time, I'm going to go, okay, so perfect example. Susie and I just got a really huge opportunity to work deep within the military to help clear PTSD at a cellular level. And it's a huge opportunity for our country. And it's a huge opportunity to also give back to our veterans, where we can create jobs for them that they can heal themselves and then go heal others. And we are looking at this as our grand manifestation. It was just the right timing, and it was the right person, and it's the right thing. And Susie and I are kind of sitting here this morning looking at each other going, okay, so everything we've ever wanted is coming true. And she looks at me and she's like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to do this. And I said, okay, who's saying that? Who's saying that? And, where are you in that? And look at all the things that you've done right, and look at all of the genius that you have, and look at all of this amazing, things you've created for us, and transcendence, and you're always this amazing problem solver, and things always work out for us. And she just kind of looks at me and she's like, you're right. I am smart enough. And then she went in for a few minutes on how we're going to just, penetrate this old paradigm of pain and suffering in the military, and how awesome it's going to be. And you know what? We'll learn as we go, and we'll figure it out. And, probably won't be that easy, but we'll be able to do it with ease, because we know that we are there to listen to ourselves. And if we weren't who we were in that moment, we could have so easily been triggered by all the past failures that we've had, or the past mistakes that we've had, or when we didn't get it right. Because you know what? It's equal. It's equally balanced, what we've been able to accomplish versus what we've been able to unaccomplish. It's equally balanced of our potential versus our weakness. It's like, what side am I shining my focus on? Am I shining my focus on the solutions or the problems? And if I wasn't conscious to recognize that the tapes are playing there because it's the old messages of all of the things that we've bought into, because I have a root cause somewhere where I broke my heart and I'm spinning in that, then it's really easy to think that your thoughts and those feelings that are coming with those thoughts and those triggers, you can really believe that they're real. But if you're there for yourself, it's like, think about your best friend or someone you love unconditionally, and imagine standing next to them as they get bullied. Think about it. You're standing right next to them, and they are literally getting bullied. They are getting verbally and emotionally abused. What do? You would stand up for that person, hopefully, and you would be like, that's not true. And, you would put that bully in their place, and you'd say, you're obviously hurt if you're hurting someone else. And you would maybe even stand in the way of that bully and your friend, because there's no one that's going to hurt your friend. And I'm wondering, and I'm hoping that you are your own friend enough to be in the way of your bully, to be in your way of the tapes that are playing that are not you. And yes, maybe you've made 1,000 mistakes, but you know what? Look at all the things you've done right. Look at all the endless acts of kindness that you've had in between the failures. Look at all of the heart and soul you've put into your relationships, even if they ended badly. Look at all the time that you've given yourself and other people to see them happy. Are you not deserving of your potential? Are you determined and stuck with your past? Because if you're not there to have a communication cycle with yourself, then you are going to fall down into 3D and you're going to live there. And if you are a 4D being, if you're an evolved being and you get programmed to get stuck in 3D, I promise you your body will be filled with diseases and sicknesses and aches and pains and arthritis and you name it, eyesight issues, hearing issues, stomach issues, bowel issues. Your relationships will constantly blindside you, and you will constantly be hurt. You will be betrayed. Opportunities won't come forth for you that you need, or you'll find yourself putting yourself out there in a beautiful position to live your dreams, and then you'll sabotage it. Because if you don't fight, and I won't say fight, if you don't heal the bully within, then everything bullies you outside of you. And I see this with a lot of spiritual people. And they open up these cute little wellness centers, and they get a practice going, and they're fourth dimensional business, and they've come to heal, and they've come to help the world change, and they're so genuine in their mission, and they're so loving in their mission, and they're so wonderful in their mission, and they want nothing more to help other people. But a lot of them haven't fixed their own frequencies, and they haven't looked at their own bully that's bullying them, and they start sabotaging themselves, and the clients aren't showing up, or the clients don't pay, or they attract the clients that don't have money, and that they're dealing with their own health issues while they're trying to help other people, and they're basically trying to solve a problem with a problem by saying, okay, well, if I heal everybody, that's going to make me feel better. But the thing is the one who actually needs healing is you first. And I've had a lot of practitioners who have come to Transcendence to try to build their business, and we always let Transcendence is a safe space to heal. So you're allowed to bring your healing business to Transcendence and let us act as your umbrella so that you can get your feet off the ground. And we do that, in our loving heart and support. But what we notice is they come in, they put their classes up online, they we help them pay to get them marketed out around town, and they show up and no one's here, or class is full and they cancel at the last minute, and it breaks my heart, because I know that they're sabotaging their own greatness, because somewhere at a visceral level those tapes are playing saying you're not good enough to be a healer. You're living a lie. You're a fraud. You shouldn't be doing this. And that empath of a soul, all it wants to do is help other people, and wants to heal people, and it wants to heal itself. And so the place of empowerment is all about facing your bully in the mirror. And your bully is your ego, and your ego is just your wounded child. And your wounded child will bully you, because your conscious mind gets to live the dream. All while the inner child within you that's been beat up has to stay stuck on the timeline until you come rescue them. And so they are very sabotaging. Thoughts are very sabotaging. I mean, I've had people go, you know what? Everything I ever wanted was handed to me on a silver platter, and the dream interview showed up and I overslept. Or, I spent $10,000 on the weight loss program and I just never went to the classes. What is that about? It's coming not from what you take action-wise outside of you, but the inner voices that are constantly going in affecting you. And I will tell you, the more you think, the more three-dimensional you are. The more you're overthinking, the less you have access to debate yourself. Because I will tell you, negative energy spirals very quickly, and it starts storytelling, and you start filling in the blanks with information that you don't know. Like, let's just put it this way, your boyfriend doesn't text you, or your husband, is short with you, and all day long you're processing what he really meant, or what was his tone, or is he with someone else? And that's your bully. That's your bully, and that has nothing to do with your partner. And it is all about being there to go, whoa, you know what? He had a long day. I had a long day. And if I'm feeling needy today that I need to hear from him, and I haven't heard from him, maybe that's an inclination that I need to love myself today. Maybe I need to date myself today. Maybe I need to be my wife today. Maybe I need to be my husband today. Maybe I need to take care of me. If I'm so focused on what he's doing, that means I'm not focused on what I'm doing. You see how I can go from third dimension to fourth dimension by just debating myself. And you are allowed to talk back to yourself. But you've got to be there. I'll be driving around the street, and all of a sudden I'll get that little twang of something I forgot to do. And I'm like, oh, crap. And immediately I go into all the things that could go wrong, because I have an ego, all the things that could go wrong by me not, forgetting this one thing. And so what I do is I'm right there with myself, and I go, whoa, 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 everything's going to be fine. Everything always is fine. Everything works out for us. And then right as I get into that feeling state, I get an inspiration, and I know exactly what to do to solve the problem. But if I never get into the higher vibrational state where the solutions are, where my soul is, where my higher self is, then I'm going to go into a negative thinking spiral real quick, and I'm going to start feeling old guilt and shame that doesn't even, need to be played through anymore. The only reason I go into those triggers is because I'm not aware. So awareness is your power. You are there with your tapes. You are there with your bully. But you've got to start talking to you. You need to stop hiring all these people to talk to you and tell you what's right for you. Because you know what they're going to do is they're going to see all your potential and they're going to go, yeah, walk your joy. It's going to be awesome. Or don't do that. And, oh, that's a bad choice and that's irresponsible. And all the while, you've got an inner critic in there that's constantly sabotaging no matter what you do. So if you don't face that in the mirror, if you don't face your bully, if you don't stand up to yourself, start debating what's right about you when ego's saying what's wrong about you, then you're not going to be able to get very conscious. And so this is a fast podcast, hopefully, that something in this resonated. I really felt inspired to do this because this is how I live my entire life. I'm always there with myself to contradict ego. I'm always there to fill in positive aspects when ego is going into, you know what, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, no one listens to you. And my higher self is like, yeah, but you know what, we helped so-and-so yesterday, and that felt really good. And I got to speak at this event, and that was really empowering for me because that was one of my dreams. And, I just go into the score where the positive aspects are instead of taking the score of what the ego thinks I am. And I take stock of all the things that are right. And, I raise my personal vibration because that's the fastest way to raise your vibration is go into the solution and go into what's right about you. And I will tell you, that will help you move into self-love with all the other techniques that we've been sharing with you over the last few podcasts. So I wanted to leave you with that today. And hopefully this is helpful. And your place of power is you. Have an awesome day.
Thank you for joining Jessica on this transcending episode. Email us directly at jessicaalstrom@gmail.com with your questions and personal challenges you would like addressed on the show. And join us on next week's podcast. You are not alone, and remember, your higher self speaks to you through people, places, circumstances, and events.